Boy, we got a little ghost going on here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod TV's #1 do-it-yourself advocate show, Timeshares, Solution or Surrenders. I am your commentator, Kimberly Calhoun, and one of the founders. And our show has been divided up a little bit. We are now a 30-minute show talking with some of the people who have experienced some bad situations with timeshares, and our subject matter expert, Irene, who is also the founder of Tarda. And Tarda has been a great advocate group to help try to change some of the laws that are necessary to help prevent some of the victims' problems that we've been having. But Irene, welcome.
Well, thank you. And Tarda stands for Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability. And we're moving towards a trade name that we hope will better reflect a cooperative effort, because when we founded Tarda in 2019, it was because of over 1,000 complaints that had been filed with the Arizona Attorney General just for one developer. And we're just hoping that we can bring some more transparency. And Tarda cannot change the laws. The only ones that can change the laws are volumes of people. And we have on our show today 2 guests, and we've got some technical challenges today, which we think we've worked out to the best of our ability. So the first person I'm going to introduce you to today, Donna. Can you unmute? Can you mute? Can you? Okay. All right. So there's what our problem is. When Donna, she can hear me, but when she is not muted, then we have some echoing. So anyway, we're never know what's going to happen, but we've got, fortunately, an engineer with us here in Kimberly, and she's able to solve just about all of our problems. Our other guest today is Dan. And Dan and Donna have both reached out to their local members of Congress, Dan in Mississippi and Donna in New Jersey. And what we are promoting is the Timeshare Transparency Act, a bipartisan Senate bill introduced by Senator John Curtis of Utah and Senator Adam Schiff of California. The Timeshare Transparency Act, what we're trying to do is take everybody's report and relate how some of these provisions could have prevented the nightmare that they found themselves in. And I always like to start the beginning of the show with our resource library, because it was difficult juggling 3 to 5 guests every day. So it's much easier to have 2 guests. And these are all people who have been on the show before. Mike Kennedy of Koala has an excellent rental program. If renting is allowed, you always need to check that so you don't find your account suspended. We had Candace and Mike Finn talking about exit companies, and we're going to be talking about exit companies today as well. And oddly enough, Dan and Donna both signed up with the same exit company. We're not going to say their name because this company in the past has listened and refunded when needed be. And we're going to talk to Dan about the dilemma he found himself in. Donna when she contacted us, she said she had signed up with them. And I said, you don't need to. And she was able within 24 hours to cancel the agreement. And she's probably, when she hears what happened to Dan, she's going to be glad that she did. And then we're going to reach out one more time to that company and see if we can fix what is bothering Dan so much. So we had last week two people, Richard and John, that both bought from Capital Resorts. Capital Vacations does business as Capital Resorts. And Dan, when he has been on the show previously, and he's taken the reaching out to his congressman a step further and actually got a photo op at the local office there. So we're going to be talking more about Dan's exit experience. But first, we're going to start with Donna. And Donna she purchased from Flagstaff. They have a resort in New Jersey, also Fantasy. Donna bought from a different resort, but this was just so sad that in October of 2022, Flagship lost a lawsuit, and a jury awarded 19 Flagstaff buyers $1,069,000. And then a few months later, their attorneys were awarded treble damages, $722,000. And everybody was thrilled. There were 11 causes of action. And what did they do? And also they admitted wrongdoing, which hardly ever happens. I'm only aware of the Manhattan Club in New York admitting liability or wrongdoing. And so they have now filed for bankruptcy. So Donna, I would like to have you unmute and tell us how you became involved with Flagship, what happened to make you unhappy with it, and what you have done about it so far.
Hello, thanks for having me on. So in February, my husband and I were in Atlantic City for a conference and was approached to attend a presentation at Flagship, of course with some gifts, some financial gifts, trips. And so reluctantly we agreed. They picked us up. We went for the presentation. And I had been a little hesitancy about timeshares, so asked a number of questions to address the concerns I had. They answered with cleverness. And eventually we went ahead and agreed to purchase.
What were the concerns? Do you remember the concerns?
Well, I was asking, number one, about having to be limited to a certain week, which is what I had known about timeshares, and not have the ability to go and use your vacation whenever you want it. And they said that wasn't an issue. There wasn't a specific week. I could go whenever I wanted. We talked about just being able to, have the availability that the places that we talked about, the way we like to travel, and that what we chose would allow us to be able to travel in that fashion. Which I later found out the accommodations and the type that you purchase are what determines the kind of vacations you'll get. So, or you'd have to pay extra money. I found that out later. So, those were some of the questions I asked that I felt like they answered, but the answers weren't totally accurate. There were some misconceptions in those answers. But we went ahead and purchased, and then we were invited back to have what they termed an opportunity to get an understanding of how to utilize the timeshare to benefit us. But when we arrived, we realized it was another presentation to try to get us to purchase a different level of the timeshare, which we were not expecting. So it was another presentation, sales presentation. And during that presentation is when I shared what I thought was what we purchased, and the salesperson pretty much said to me, "That's not what you purchased." And that's when we found out all the things that were different. We might not be able to with what we purchased. We might not be able to go when we wanted to. We might not be able to get the kind of accommodations we thought we were going to be able to get. That's when I realized we purchased a certain type of accommodation which we weren't clear about before. And she pretty much said we would need to purchase higher in order to get what we were expecting. So at that point, we were pretty shocked that, because I said to her, we asked all these questions. Nobody said that, because had we known these things, probably wouldn't have made the purchase at that time. And so, they had us talk to somebody else who said, oh, no, that's not the case. It's just how you utilize it. So we decided not to purchase higher, obviously, but we articulated our frustration with what was happening and feeling like we were misguided and misled and were not happy with, the previous presentation. So we left, and I wasn't sure what to do. And I don't know how I found Tarda, but somehow I was on social media and it came up. Well, actually, before that, you hear all these things about timeshare exits. And so that's where I went first. Wesley came up, I looked at a few, had the free consultation, and after that decided to go along with them. And it was after that when I saw Tarda, and who was advising against timeshare companies. And so I thought, maybe I moved too soon with the company, the exit company, and I immediately contacted them and asked to cancel, that I had a change of heart. And perhaps because it was very early on, they accommodated me, agreed to, and after talking with Irene, she told me what to ask them for, an agreement, something in writing that they would refund my money. And I did that, and they accommodated me with that. And shortly thereafter, I was able to get the full refund.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna
I'm gonna have you mute.
so I can talk without the echo. And so what's interesting about this show is you have Donna that is considering what her options are if they don't. And I know this is a horrible company based on my observations of how they responded to other people. I had one person in her 80s, a widow, in a walker. Her driver's license had been taken away, and I contacted them because she didn't even have a computer. And the response from the manager was, if we took back for every sad story. And I was like, what do you need to be in a coma? This is ridiculous. So Donna may have to consider default. And for Dan to be on the show with us, Dan, when did you stop making payments? And we can, with Capital Vacations.
Back about the beginning of 23, January of 23.
Yeah, so 23, 24, 25, so a long time. And you've been on the show before, but just briefly tell us why you were not happy with your Capital Vacations purchase.
I was real unhappy. I mean, they lied. They sold us everything in the world. Told us it was the greatest thing. We couldn't live without it. I specifically asked them, if this thing didn't work out, what was the way out of it? And they said, well, after the first 5 days, it's real easy. After that, you would just have to write a couple letters to the developer, and then they would release you. And I said, well, so I don't have to get a lawyer or anything. He said, no, the timeshares have changed. It's not like that anymore. Which, yeah, that turned out to be a load. And then, going with the exit companies, which, you hear it on the radio and it sounds like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that didn't pan out either. And I was a little bit overwhelmed when they had told me it could take up to 3 years. But after, after 3 years, they didn't live up to their expectations. And, they say they have 100% money back guarantee. Well, I've got less than 50% of my money back from them. And
Why
I'm still
was that?
stuck.
Why was it only 50%?
They didn't, they didn't understand from the get-go when I hired them that I had a settlement offer with Capital for $8,500. And I thought it was trash because I hadn't taken any trips or used anything. It was only like at that point in time about 55, 60 days in on the whole ordeal. And, and I went with them and they're like, no, we can get you out of it. And, I had asked them too. I said, I can only pay one or the other. I can't pay both. And they're like, oh, just stop paying them and pay us. And that's led into its own things. Now the timeshare is reporting that I'm missing my mortgage payments, or it's showing up on my credit report as missed mortgage payments. But I don't own any of their property. I only own points.
For Donna's benefit, let's back up. And when you stopped making loan payments, how many collection calls did you get over the phone, in the mail, and how did you handle them?
So they were pretty much calling daily. I had requested for them to just, I was tired of talking to them, just mail it to me, and they refused to do that. And they refused to do anything other than over the phone. And they want to record all your phone calls. I told them I'm going to record yours. Well, they got really highly upset about that. And it's just been a mess. We still get daily text messages, still, we have changed. There's new exit options. And, but if you call them, there's not. It's the same old thing. They actually, each time they increase how much money they want now to get out.
And there's a couple things you said that also for Donna's benefit, that we are not lawyers, so we cannot give legal advice. But when the main reason to refer to an attorney is if you just don't want to deal with it, because then all of those calls and correspondence would go to the attorney that you turned over to. But 3 people have reported back from 3 different law firms that the law firms have said to ignore all calls and correspondence. States have a statute of limitations on how long usually 6 years, it may be 4 years in some states I've seen, where they can't pursue a debt. So I usually encourage people to at least respond to the first one. And what's really disgusted me lately is that Club Exploria and sadly Marriott Vacation Club, that we used to have way up there, and I always said Marriott was a kinder, gentler forecloser, but they have retained Blackwell Recovery. And these are resorts that have no responsible exit. So you either pay for the rest of your life or you default just on maintenance fees, no loan. And the timeshare industry lobby, ARDA, the American Resort Development Association, is in partnership. They're supposed to be on our side. They're supposed to be our protectors. And there's a website called ARDA's Buyer Marketplace. It sounds wonderful, but it should be called the ARDA Buyers Foreclosure Site. And not only that, they awarded the debt collection service, Concord, their award of excellence. So the fact that timeshare members fund ARDA $5 million a year, mostly in automatic opt-out billings to maintenance fees, I think is horrific. So, and the other thing is the oral representation clause. It just keeps coming up over and over and over. One other thing I want to mention, and I don't know if Dan or Donna did this. I always forget because it's hard enough. I know Donna filed with the she's in the process of filing with the New Jersey Attorney General. Dan, when you filed, with the attorney generals, did you get a response?
I haven't gotten one back from Tennessee yet, but that was just a couple days ago. But on the other ones, I did get responses, and they're basically no help.
Yeah,
They're
I
like
say there's
civil matter.
Yeah, pro-consumer and pro-developer attorney generals, because Kimberly was lucky that she bought in Illinois, and that attorney general really had your back. And Tennessee is pretty good. So we'll go from there. So Donna, if you decide to stop making payments, you can go through it you have a consultant here, and Dan, Dan, to go through it on the buddy system. And you're not alone. We have an upcoming guest that is in July, and she is in New York, not far from you. She bought from Flagstaff, and the same thing. They wanted to go to specific places, and sure, no problem. And it was, because it was international, it was a big problem. So, Dan, going forward, have you filed with the Federal Trade Commission?
I have on the timeshare company, yes.
Okay,
But
all right, good.
but I really never heard back from them either, and that was
Okay,
months.
so I'm glad you mentioned that, because they typically, if they do respond, they respond with an automatic, here's some timeshare tips. It doesn't mean they're not listening. I attended 2 trials, and the Federal Trade Commission, in cooperation with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, sent attorneys to argue on behalf of military plaintiffs. So don't think they're not listening. I've actually talked to some people at the Federal Trade Commission, and this timeshare bill, this is the first time that we would have FTC federal support for this bill. So, I'd like to thank both of you for being on the show, and especially both of you have reached out to your members of Congress. Kimberly, you've reached out to we actually went to Washington, D.C., and Kimberly reached out to her senator, and we were able to meet in North Carolina with a member of the legislative staff. Wasn't he one of the ones that said, how is this legal?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that maybe 3 times out of the 25 that we spoke with. How is this even legal? And, you got to ask yourself that question. And they know the loopholes. These people have been doing this for years, and they learn the legal loopholes. They have attorneys after attorneys that they pay. They also have lobbyists who help ensure it. But I think what makes it legal in many ways is the people, they don't know they have rights, and they don't fight. You get exhausted, you're tired, you're out of money, they're sucking you dry, and they add more and more fees as you go along. And, some of you who got out early, you would learn that the HOA fees were going up and up and up, or the fees for the points. And, I heard Dan say that he got dinged for not paying his mortgage, but he's buying points. I have to wonder, did they sell you a deed? Because they do sell a deed of interest, and people don't know it. I didn't know that I bought a deed. I had no idea what I bought the day I bought, so I was drunk anyway. But and that's a different story, and that's why I won. One of the reasons why.
Some are deeded and some are not deeded, but
yeah, but it's weird.
It's important, though, to compose your report. I mean, I think that's half the battle, as being able to write up so that anyone can see it. But I know what's important about Donna and our upcoming guest is that also from Flagship, is that you don't have access to the booking site during the state mandated cancellation period. So most lawmakers are attorneys, or many of them, and they say you should have read the contract. You had 5 or 10 days to cancel, depending on the state. If you don't have access to the booking site, there was no way for Donna to determine that she had not bought what she had thought. If she could, and the one of the law offices did not know that. One of the involved with the bill. So that's pretty amazing.
Well, and
Oh, we have
they don't
Mark.
disclose
Mark
that
is
there
up.
is not an exit opportunity once that's done. This is pretty much what we call here in the South cradle to grave. It goes past the grave. In many cases, if you read your contract, even after you die, your children inherit, but there's no exit whatsoever. And that also threw a lot of the people we met with in DC. They go, you mean they have, a big family situation happens and they can't exit? No.
Well, the family can't, they can disclaim it, but
The
they have
family
to know
can,
the
but you
disclaimer.
have to know when to do it. You have to know the contract. You have to know it exists. And those fees keep accruing. So, I mean, I don't think that should be that way. If the family's inheriting the debt, then they need to be signing the document. It shouldn't, I can't transfer my deeds without signatures. Actually, according to the contracts, you can't. But yet they can transfer it to my family. No, my family didn't sign for it. I mean,
Well,
Sheila and I
that's part
talked
of
about
all.
this.
If that's what probate is about, though, if you don't have a will is a letter to a probate judge. So your assets, quote unquote, timeshare being a liability more than an asset, but it will transfer like the rest of your assets.
You need
So
to, I mean, not a lot of this is disclosed in the meetings, but we're at the top of the hour. We'd
We
like
are.
to thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you,
And
Donna, and
make
thanks.
sure you check out our resource library. And you know what? Thank you, guest, for joining us and sharing your stories. We hope you come back and we talk about some of the resolutions and solutions that have happened and steps that other people can take. We'll see you next Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, folks, take care. Bye.